we've got winter storm warnings and winter weather advisories widespread across the Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, and much of the Northeast region as a lake effect snow squall continues to propagate south from Lake Erie, and Lake Michigan continues to stay active, as well as Lake Superior. And then looking ahead, we have a warm-up potentially with more so rain, maybe some severe weather in the forecast next week. So let's break all those details down, all things weather right now. All right, so let's get started with first taking a look at the situation going on in much of the Ohio Valley and our lake shores here. All right, we have an active Great Lakes region here. You can clearly see that. And as we zoom in here, note that we're likely going to see some bands off all the lakes by the time we get into this evening and overnight. And then as we go into tomorrow throughout the day, things should start winding down, especially around Lake Ontario. However, the Great Lakes region is staying active as all heck. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., some more lake effect bands, probably some heavier bands at times, getting up on the lakes there. But as we head into this time frame, we finally start to see this whole entire system as a whole start to basically just flush itself out as we head into this time frame. So things start to really wind down as we go into on the day on Sunday. But we have to look in the west coast of the United States, all right? This is the next thing I'm talking about, all right? This is the beginning of the warm-up here, and we're watching three pieces of energy to potentially come together. And the question is, do they come together at the time we're expecting? We could potentially have a massive event of rainfall in this region right here. However, depending on how they come together, we could potentially have an ice storm if this happens to go where it's showing right now, or this whole thing could just completely dissipate and we might just get some isolated ice and maybe some lake effect in our region right here, all right? There's a lot of scenarios that could pan out with this, so I'm not really going to go too much into detail, but let's check out what the Euro model has to say about this warm-up next week. All right, so taking a look at the Euro model guidance for the potential with this warm-up here, you can see that snowstorm and that lake effect goes away as we go through the day on tomorrow. And then remember, the Great Lakes region is likely going to continue to stay active. There's those three pieces of energy I was telling you about. Watch how one of them, as of right now, phases together to create this ice shield out ahead of this. Perhaps more lake effect for portions of the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes. And then we turn all rain, maybe some rumbles of thunder down here in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana. And continuing this here, you can see maybe some ice mix as of right now in Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, southern Michigan region. We're going to have to keep our eyes on that. And then we have the potential for severe weather opening in the Gulf of Mexico by the time we get into the day on Tuesday. We're going to have to take a look at those ingredients. I'll do that in the next part of this video. But all indication is that some sort of snowstorm blows out across the Northeast, all right? Not saying this is going to be a definite solution. However, it is a possibility. So please keep your, continue to keep our eyes on that. We continue with the rain down here in the Gulf Coast, potentially with more severe weather going into the day on Wednesday. Unknown how big the severe weather threat will be, but it seems as if that moisture could drive all the way up the Ohio Valley. So we're going to have to watch that as well. Maybe some thunderstorms up there, and then we have the potential for some flooding rainfall in the Northeast as we head into this time frame, and we're going to have to watch beyond this point. And as it looks, it's going to be very active in the next few weeks here, guys. So just know that in the 10-day period, it's also going to be definitely very active. And describing this here, let's take a look at our severe weather ingredients that we need so that we can break down the Gulf Coast solution. So the first thing we like to look at when forecasting severe weather is obviously the instability, and we obviously have to see if we have energy for thunderstorm development or not here. So as we head into that Sunday time frame, obviously no severe weather that day. As we head into that Monday time frame, notice that we start to get some light instability in portions of southern Texas, and then as we go into late Tuesday, this is when things could start getting a little handy-dandy here in this region right here, a little nasty as we head into that time frame. And as we go into the day on Wednesday, that instability plume needs to be watched very closely. However, I'm not anticipating as of right now for this to be a major severe weather outbreak, but we, however, may need to watch Thursday and Friday because this is where moisture will likely lift as far north as the Ohio Valley. So we're going to need to watch that as well. And speaking of, we need to talk about how much moisture content we need for these thunderstorms to become severe. Let's take a look at the buoyancy rates. Now we're going to take a peek at that buoyancy rate, or those buoyancy rates, as we head into that time frame, and we're likely going to see a lot of buoyancy, especially in the Gulf Coast and potentially the Ohio Valley. So 2 areas to watch next week for the potential for some maybe some flooding rainfall. So we're going to need to watch that closely. But anyways, taking you all the way out here, you can see, look at all that cold air that wraps in behind it, all right? At least those are very, very abnormally dry dew points and definitely very abnormally dry in places. So yeah, definitely a cold one behind this snowstorm itself. And then watch as that moisture surge starts to develop as we go into the Monday, Tuesday time frame here in Texas. Where that instability is, we might be talking about the potential for maybe perhaps a marginal or slight risk, maybe even enhanced risk, depending on how much enhanced buoyancy becomes an issue as we head into that time frame. But notice as we go into Tuesday, this moisture plume begins to really intensify, and we could potentially have as high as 45 to 50 degree dew points as far north as southern Kentucky by the time we get into Tuesday afternoon. And then as we go into Wednesday, throughout the day here, you can see big surge of buoyancy as we head into that time frame, while at the same time we have modest instability, at least on the Gulf Coast shore. We could potentially be favoring as well some flooding rainfall from Tennessee to the Ohio Valley if we could get those near 50 degree dew points or higher here. And 60 degree dew points can be as far north as southern Tennessee too, as well as 70 degree dew points seriously being advecting as far north as inland in the Arklamis region, as well as potentially getting into Alabama, Georgia, and the Florida Panhandle. It's just going to be a nasty setup if this sets up the way it looks right now. And then as we go into that Thursday, Friday, no wonder I told you it was something to look out for. Look how far this moisture surges of about 50 to 55 degree dew points up here. Might need to watch for the potential for maybe some instability or perhaps some heavy rainfall at the least up here. But seriously, in the southeast, I might really be targeting areas for the potential for severe storms as we head into that time frame, at least for some stronger storms and heavy rainfall at least. So we know heavy rainfall is going to be a potential threat there, and that is always very likely with thunderstorms. And then behind it, we get cold, dry back air back in here. So that's going to be something to watch closely. And even all the way into Monday, we could have severe weather all next week, guys. So fingers crossed, knock on wood, that it's not as bad as it's looking right now. But we obviously have more ingredients to look at than this buoyancy. So let's take a look at the shear rates. All right, so now taking a look at our actually third severe weather or thunderstorm ingredient here is wind shear, and you almost most of the time need shear to kickstart severe thunderstorms, especially the ones that produce those tornadoes there. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on here. Let's take this here as we go into this time frame. Notice as we go into Sunday, we already are starting to see that surge of shear along with that instability there. All right, that is terrible news, and that also combine it with the buoyancy as well as the potential for strong instability here. You're likely going to be dealing with some sort of enhanced severe weather down there. This definitely looks like the potential for an enhanced severe weather day, maybe for Sunday in the Texas area. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on. And then going into Monday, remember that instability plume is going to expand drastically, and that is only going to open up the potential for more shear chances as we go into this time frame. And then as we go into that Thursday evening and overnight time frame, I told you before, guys, it is going to be likely that we have a severe weather threat as far north as Tennessee and maybe even Kentucky as we head into that time frame, or at the least as you go more north, heavy rainfall. And I'll put a map on there as to what you could expect as of right now later in the video. But anyways, you can see as we go into this time frame, note that we get a big burst of shear over here too, so it doesn't stop really until we get into the end of the model run before we get another good old light surge of shear off the coast of perhaps South Carolina going into that time frame. So definitely a thing to watch, but the next thing we have to look at is the low-level winds. Let's take a look at that right now. All right, so taking a peek at the low-level jet energy, that could help us to take a look at the potential for damaging winds, downbursts, or isolated tornado spin-up potential, even the potential for some stronger tornadoes. So this is always something to eye on when you're tracking the severe weather potential. And as we go into that Sunday, Monday time frame, that low-level jet is there. So we at least will likely have a damaging wind, maybe even a tornado threat as we head into that time frame. And continued moisture convergence is likely going to allow this to enhance itself by the time it gets up here. And then we don't really have much of a threat for damaging winds, maybe a tornado as we go into Wednesday. But watch as we get another surge of it as we go into Thursday. And potentially, if we could get enough moisture convergence and instability, which is all uncertain in the book right now, in Kentucky, we could potentially have severe thunderstorms as far north as Kentucky and maybe even southern Indiana, maybe Ohio as well. So that's going to be something to eye on. As we continue this model run, we go into next week, and then it ramps back up again here, quiets down, and then we get another surge by the end of the model run. So again, guys, things are likely going to change, especially with the later runs. And I'm not just saying like it's going to change drastically, but I'm going to tell you right now that we have the potential for enhanced severe weather at least in Texas, maybe even portions of the Gulf Coast as we go into next week. The Gulf Coast really marginal to slight, but that could change as well. So guys, I really recommend you guys staying tuned to your weather provider, whether it's, WKYC TV3 News like mine is, or if you want to stay tuned with mine, Weather Watchers, or One Nation Weather's forecast, you can gladly do that as well to provide more updates. But always to get more updates from me, you obviously have to like, subscribe, or at the least turn on notifications so you don't miss out on any important weather forecasts. All right, guys, we know we have a lot of moisture. We know we have the potential, plenty of potential for heavy rainfall, flooding rainfall in the Gulf Coast and north in the next week. And I know all of that jumbly-jamber was probably confusing for all of you and in gibberish at times. So here is a map to simplify, as of right now, what you can expect by location. Gulf Coast in Texas, severe thunderstorm potential as far north as Tennessee. Heavy flooding rainfall as far north as Pennsylvania and New York as we go into next week. And wintry weather as you go into the Northeast, which we discussed earlier in the video. But yeah, that was a more simpler map to break it all down for you. But anyways, let's check out our temperatures, because we have quite above average temperatures that we're going to be anticipating across much of the United States after this lake effect mess goes away from the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley region. Let's take a look at that right now. Alright, so checking out those warm above average temperatures here. You can see the color code to your right on the screen right now. As we head into this time frame, note that we're likely going to continue seeing those below zero temperatures in Nebraska and Iowa, hence those those wind chill warnings that I mentioned to you earlier. There's another Arctic blast of air, so the Great Lakes and Ohio Valley region will get in on some of this again, while the South will also get some of this, potentially with temperatures only in the mid-20s. So with those freeze warnings intact as well. I already showed them at the beginning of the video. But once that all rolls on out of here, we get this warm surge from the Gulf of Mexico, all right? 65 degrees down here. And then as we go into this time frame, notice the warm surge that we get. And now we're talking temperatures in the mid to high 30s in much of the Ohio Valley, and down here normal temperatures for this time of year, getting a little above normal in the southeast. But watch what happens as we go into this time frame though. Alright, temperatures could get as high as the high 40s in the Ohio Valley next week. That is very warm for this time of year, as well as down here in the southeast. We're likely going to be contending with 60s there. So that's going to be something to keep an eye on as well. And through the afternoon hours on Friday the 26th, this is a week out, but you could see definitely a warm surge coming in terms of that. And then we finally get another surge of cold air behind it. I don't know why I said finally. I'm tired of all this cold air, lol. But you can see we're watching the potential for another cold blast as we go into next week. So that's going to be something, 2 weeks from now. So that's going to be obviously something to watch. But hey guys, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and have a wonderful rest of your day, everybody.